How's it going, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of Bourbon with Diesel. This is the 10,000 subscribers special. A big thank you to all of you that have taken an interest in what we do here on the channel. And as I record this, it's actually closer to 12,000 subscribers. That is super awesome. Thank you all so much. It means a lot to me that you guys are interested in both what I do and what we do up at the hangar with the arguably one of the most iconic Cold War jet fighters of all time. Now, to answer a question I saw a lot the last time I did one of these videos is, what am I drinking tonight? Well, that, my friends, is a Highland Scotch. It's a single malt Scotch by Alexander Murray. And I want to emphasize, I'm not sponsored by any of these companies, so this is a pretty good Scotch. So if you guys are ever interested in trying a Scotch, I do recommend this one. Again, not sponsored by anybody, but this is delicious. A little bit of reflection on this. I am incredibly humbled that you guys have an interest in what we have going on down at the hangar. It's I'd like to say that a huge value that I see is from you guys down in the comments. I have learned a lot from some of you that have worked on these aircraft, maybe even before I was alive, scary thought. But it is awesome to see how much beloved this aircraft was, as well as some of the other aircraft like the Super Sabre. That's really cool. And we do plan on making some more noise with the F4. The F100 should be going up soon again. And in addition to some of the other cool stuff that we have down here. So, more things to come. A little more camera work too. And trust me, I'm working on that too. Now, plans for the channel remain largely unchanged. I like to try to do 2 videos per week. One from DCS, usually as the midweek, and the hangar videos every Sunday morning. Now, I like to try to keep those as regular as possible, so I try to always release those at 8 a.m. Sunday morning Central U.S. time, or 1300 Zulu. So, again, that remains largely unchanged, and usually depending on my own work schedule during the week, the DCS side may get pushed aside. I almost will always try to make it out to the hangar so you guys have something interesting to watch from the hangars. I do plan on doing some more collaborations, especially with Jet Jared and one of our guys, Jack. Jack does the Instagram side of the house, and has recently started up his own YouTube channel where he uploads some of his own stuff there too. So I'll be sure to leave a link to that down below. Now, we do plan on making some more noise with the aircraft, especially as the F4 gets closer and closer to taking to the skies again. I am super excited for that, and it was super awesome to hear that J79 come to life, even though we can only run one of them 2 weekends ago. Now, I do plan on doing a couple some more things with some of our partner organizations down here at the airfield. I'll mention it again during the hangar sequence, but we are one of 4 organizations at our airfield. You have Collings Foundation, us, you have the Vietnam War Flight Museum, you have U.S. Armed Forces Museum, and then there is Lone Star Flight Museum. So a big part of what I wanted to do for the special is set up a question and answer type deal. And I'm just going to get straight into that because I want to answer a lot of your guys' questions. I know I've answered some sprinkled across all the videos that we've done, but I wanted to do that. So some questions I'll answer here in this format. Some will be at the hangar. And I do want to mention again, I film these on different days, so it's not like I'm having a good one and then heading straight to the hangar to film that. Trust me, I film these on different days. So in no particular order, our first one comes from Shadow31, who asks, niche question, but would you know what the latest variant of the Sidewinders and Sparrows were used in Vietnam? Post-Vietnam, when the Phantom was retired from frontline duty, what was the latest variant that could be used on them? Good question, and I'm drawing on memory. So I know the Navy and the Air Force had Sidewinder programs that were in parallel but never kind of together up until more recently. So during Vietnam, the Navy would have had their own versions and the Air Force would have had their own versions, and I don't know what was common between the two. As far as the Air Force versions, I think the AIM 9 Echo Sidewinder was the latest that they used in Vietnam, as well as the AIM 7 Echo 2 for the Sparrows. Now, as far as latest and greatest, again, I'm drawing on the stuff for the Air Force side. I believe 9 Mike was the absolute latest Sidewinder variant, maybe even the 9 Papa 5. And for Sparrows, I believe it is the 7 Mikes. If any of you guys were in the weapons side of the house for this, especially on the Navy and Marine Corps side, please chime in below. I'd love to learn that. Alright, thank you very much and good luck getting her running. Can't wait to see her fly again. I can't either. Alright, user XS5. Is there any update on your company ban to take passengers or progress in leasing to somebody else to mitigate that issue? Well, I do want to emphasize one thing is I am only a volunteer for the Collings Foundation. I am not an official spokesperson, so I can't speak on behalf of the foundation, but I try to represent them as best possible as a volunteer. So with that, I do know with that B-17 crash a few years ago, the Living History Flight Experience, or LHFE, permit, I don't know what else to call it. The Living History Flight Experience was revoked from the foundation. I don't know if that'll ever come back or not at this point. We shall see in the future, I suppose. As far as leasing to somebody else, per our agreement with the Air Force, I'm pretty sure we are not allowed to lease to anybody else. It is only to us. And that's that as far as the F4 goes. I don't know what the agreements are for some of the other aircraft, but I'm fairly confident as far as the F4 goes, we're not able to sublease that out to anybody else. Any news on the rocket pack issues for the seats? Not that I am aware of. I know we ask that periodically, and I know we're still looking for new rockets and pyros for the seats, but I don't have any update on that, unfortunately. I wish I did. Alright. Next question comes from Andy Montemayor 175. Are you showing at Wings over Houston 2024? Absolutely. We love participating in that every year, whether or not one of our aircraft is simply a static display or as a flyer. The last 2 years, our ME-262 flew during the air show. So in 22 and 23, yeah, the ME-262 flew. This year, I believe the 262 will also fly, and I believe they are really pushing to have the F100 as a flyer for this year's air show. As far as the F4, maybe, and we'll touch on this in the hangar sequence with Crew Chief Al, but that's a possibility. The one thing to keep in mind with air shows, a lot of this stuff is planned well ahead of time, so if she achieves flyable status before the air show, there's a small chance that she may fly this year in the air show, but we're not going to push to meet an artificial deadline and on a possibility. There's a good likelihood she may fly next year in the show, but whichever case that may be, she will be either as a static display and very small possibility as a flyer, but more than likely our 262 and our F100 will be our flyers this year. Everything else will be a static, so that would be F4, A4, and maybe even the T-33. I'm not 100% on that. It's usually whatever the airport asks for once everybody makes it in for the weekend, whatever they would like to have, and we're always willing to help them out for that. Alright, up next is Mr. Chippy Boy 5882. There probably is an answer in a video, but did this Phantom see combat? Our Phantom never saw combat, and we have most of the flight. We have most of the records for her. Most of her service in the Air Force time was spent in Europe, standing the nuclear alert mission. So she could carry the big bomb, and she spent time in Germany, over in Great Britain, Torrejon, Spain. I may be mispronouncing that. I am sorry. And there's a few other duty stations, and then once they retired her from that service, she came back stateside and served with the Kansas Air National Guard, and then lastly the Texas 147th Air National Guard, which is based out of Ellington Airfield here locally. And that was really cool that she kind of came full circle, that they're the ones that retired her ultimately and brought her to the boneyard, and we brought her right back to Ellington Field as the only flyable Phantom in the U.S. Next question comes from Arc Firefox. What is your favorite fact about the F4 Phantom? Well, I don't know if I could pick any particular one. The one thing that really jumps out at me, and this is the surprising thing that has stood out in the videos, is how well loved she is by anybody that's ever put hands on her or flown them. And that is really cool, because I see that from you guys a lot, is how much that you guys love and miss this aircraft. And I think just that crew connection to the airframe is awesome. And there's a lot of countries that flew these things, and some of the commenters are international, and that's really cool to see that too. So yeah, I think that's probably my favorite fact about the Phantom, was how loved they were. And a fact on the more technical side of things is this is likely the first aircraft that was considered a multi-role aircraft. I know the Navy developed them as a fleet interceptor, and it evolved into arguably one of the earliest multi-role fighters that we had, and that's pretty awesome. Up next, Ayayas 200 asks, when are you guys getting an F-105? Probably never, unfortunately. I know the Foundation some years ago tried to get a flyable F-105, and we were told an emphatic no. So, unless it's just a static display, we're not ever going to get a F-105, and to my knowledge, there is not a single one that is capable of flight anymore. Charles SC7723, no questions, just want to see her fly again. Me too. Alright, up next, Runway Models 1987. Will you be flying this F4? Me personally, no. I would love to earn my pilot's license and work my way into the cockpit if possible. It's definitely a long shot, but I'd love to try. Will I be flying it? No, we have a couple of pilots that do fly it, that actually flew them during military service. It would be awesome to see an F-14 get restored one day if it's possible. Yeah, that would be awesome. I think the Navy missed a really good opportunity to at least keep one or two around, as much as we love those movies that she was heavily featured in, namely both Top Guns. But yeah, I don't know if there's any effort right now to get an F-14 restored or not, but that would be awesome to see it. Bring the Rain asks, do you have any details on the history and development of the unique F4 Phantom joystick grip, the B8 or the MC2? No, I don't. Not specifically for the F4. I have looked into these in the past, and I've seen both designations, and I think there were two manufacturers of these things, which is why some are referred to as the B8 and others the MC2. If I'm not mistaken, this design stems all the way back to the tail end of World War II, because a lot of the Century Series fighters had these. The F4, the first A-10 had this. The A model A-10. There were some helicopters. The Huey has this. I've seen it in our Huey, and so yeah, that's a very common flight grip that was used in a lot of aircraft. Let's see, why was the palm rest shaved down in the F4? I don't know if I've ever noticed that personally, but I'll have to look next time I'm at the hangar. So I don't know how to answer that, unfortunately, sorry. And thank you. You're welcome. All right, Michael 9Z9S asks, my impression is that you are at an old Army Corps training base. Is that correct? Well, yes, that is correct. Ellington Field stems all the way back to sometime around World War I and has existed ever since, and was a training base during World War II, in fact, as well. Let's see. So, if so, where are you and what field? Okay, Ellington Field, which is on the south side of Houston, Texas. The four-letter designation for that is KEFD, so Kilo Echo Foxtrot Delta. Let's see, my father did his flight training in Texas. I'm struggling to remember which field. My memory isn't what it used to be. Yeah, mine either. I can sympathize with you there. Alright, up next, Pring Photo Martin asks, is the F4 going to go back on the airshow circuit? That is a good question. Let me set this down for now. So, there's an enormous amount of logistics that goes behind into bringing an aircraft in for an airshow, right? Regardless if it's an F4 or P-51, B-25, B-17, B-29, whatever. Usually the host organization or the city that's hosting that particular airshow will provide funding for performances and bringing aircraft in for that particular airshow, and that covers fuel expenses, crew accommodations, that sort of thing. And to bring an F4 or any combat jet into for an airshow, that gets expensive really quick, because we hold just short of 2,000 gallons of just internal fuel, even more if you add the drop tanks, which that's another 740 gallons just for the drop tanks. And depending on whether or not we have tanks on board, that limits our flight endurance, because we always fly based on fuel burn and not distance, and that's highly variable depending on the winds up in the atmosphere. Without tanks, I believe our limit is an hour and 15 minutes before we have to land and get more gas. If we have the tanks, I believe that pushes our endurance up to 2 hours. So having to do multiple stops, and then to top that off, wherever we land for fuel, they have to have the services available to launch us out again. So definitely needs a start cart at the bare minimum, because you can start an Air Force F4 with the battery. You just need something to get the jet engine spinning again, so you need a huffer cart at the bare minimum. Even better if you have the electrical power. So there's that limitation, and from what I was told from the guys that have been around with the program a lot longer, for the most part, the F4, because she's an expensive thing to have at an air show, I believe we generally only did 2 or 3 air shows a year. It's a lot easier here in Houston because we're just based locally, and whoever's paying for the gas, that's all they got to pay for is the gas. So as far as the airshow circuit goes, yes, but it is highly dependent on the logistics, and that's just an unfortunate reality. And if you think about it, having a P-51, which has a much more agreeable 30 to 60 gallon per hour fuel burn rate and a much better flight endurance, is a lot cheaper to bring in than an F4 or something big like a P-17. So it's just a reality of just airshow logistics, unfortunately. So is she going to go back on the airshow circuit? I suppose. It depends. And that also ties in with Laguerre Aviation. Are you guys going to travel around the country and show it off? If so, what are some spots you guys might hit? That ties in with the last question. Just depends on the host city or the organization, and if they're willing to help foot the bill for the gas to get it there. And then you also got to think of if something happens, parts, maintenance, if some issue arises in flight and we have to stop somewhere and now we can't make the air show. So highly dependent on just the logistics. All right, Fabulous Profound 168 asks, I know you put it in a video in the past, what are the actual tail numbers of the Phantom and the Hun? So in the Phantom's case, that the tail number that's back on the tail, so 37680, that is representative of the F-4 Charlie that Colonel Olds flew for Operation Bolo, which the full tail number of the bird he flew that day was 637680. But that's not the tail number of our Phantom. That's just what she's painted as. The real tail number of ours is 650749. And for anybody that looks for this in either the videos, or if you guys get to pay us a visit like during the air show or any time that she's on public display, look on the left hand engine intake and you'll see some white letters stenciled there, and that has the real tail number of our F4. Now in the F100's case, the tail number that she has painted on there is 63951, and that is another Vietnam era fighter, and that was one of the Misties back during that war, but her real tail number is 563844. So our F100 was built in 1956. So to answer, also to go with it, because I know I've seen this question a lot, is why are the tail numbers numbered so weird sometimes? Like, especially with what's painted on the Phantom, using only the last 5 instead of the first 2, which is always the year, and then the last 3. Racer 1505 answers that and says, into the late 60s, early 70s, they only used the last 5 digits of the serial number. So the example he gives is of his dad's F4C. Its number was 637423. He's seen pictures of it at Kadena when it was flying with it numbered 37423. Sometime in the late 70s, they changed it to the fiscal year it was ordered. So then it was later marked 63423 until they retired her in 1987. So thank you for that enlightenment there, Racer 1505. I was always puzzled onto why that numbering scheme, of why they dropped the first digit and not the third. I don't know, but that clears it up. So thank you for that. All right, Chopper 7352 writes, great work with the F4. What are the short, medium, and long-term plans now that she's a runner? We're going to keep her that way. We're going to keep her in a flyable condition for as long as we possibly can. And hopefully tour her around the country. Again, it just depends on that air show logistics things that I discussed earlier. But we are going to keep her flyable for as long as we possibly can. Ideally, she will be the last flyable Phantom in the entire world. That would be super awesome, because at this point there's only 3 countries that still fly Phantoms. That's being Greece, Turkey, and Iran. And she may be the last. We don't know. We will see. But yeah, that's short-term and long-term plans is about the same. Just keep her flyable for as long as possible. All right. Up next, Starfleet has tanks. Who actually gets to fly it? That we have 3 pilots that are qualified to fly the F4. So that's who we have currently, and they all live somewhat nearby. So it's not very hard or difficult to ask them to come on in and fly the Phantom. So hopefully, and I know, and I mentioned this earlier, hopefully I can get on that short list of people that can fly it, but that is a long shot, and I got to start my pilot training long before that happens. All right, and the last question I have for this segment of the video, Ryder275 asks, how can someone donate money to this project? And thank you. Happy to answer that. And that ties in with a couple of questions I've seen in some of the other videos, especially after I was able to add that donate button on the video to the American Heritage Museum. And I got some questions about that, so I'll discuss that. So there's 2 ways that people can donate to this project. One is on these videos, there's always a link for donations, and you'll see it'll be to the American Heritage Museum. That's a new feature on the channel that I got thanks to you guys helping get it over 10,000 subscribers. It's really cool of Google to do this. And the nice thing is, if somebody hits that donate button and says, and you can donate whatever amount of money that you feel like you want to donate. So let's say if you donate $10, Google does not charge any fees or take a percentage of that donation. It is 100%. They will cover all the transaction fees of that, and whoever the designated 501c organization is, and in this case here on the channel is the American Heritage Museum, they would get that entire $10 donation. So that's one option. Also, in any video of any of the historic aircraft, I will always leave links down below, and that's what I have done for the longest time. That'll take you straight to the Collings Foundation website where you can donate that way as well. And to tie along with that, I try to avoid, I don't want to fall into the trap of trying to beg for money in every video. I just want to make that available to people, and if you feel like donating, awesome, but I'm not going to beg for donations. I don't feel that that's necessarily right. But now, to go with the donate button, I did see several questions on if somebody uses that, does that money come back down to us in our program? And the short answer on that is yes. So I talked to our guys that talk to the financial people up in Massachusetts, where the Collings Foundation is based, and they came back and said yes, that they can see that money come in from that source, and they can reallocate it back towards our program down here in Texas. So to answer that, yes, using that button, the money will come back to help these aircraft. So if you guys were curious on that, there's the answer for that I was able to get. All right, that covers all the questions that I got for the bourbon half of this video. And yes, I know it's a Scotch. Don't kill me, internet. But so that covers the questions here. Let's get over to the hangar, and I got some fun stuff over there for you guys. And I will be joined by Crew Chief Al, and we're going to walk through all the hangars, and then to go along with that, our F-100, the TA-4, and the ME-262 are elsewhere. So we're going to have a little fun coming up here next. And again, a huge thank you to you guys for the interest that you guys have in the channel. I started it originally to do DCS World videos from the flight sim, and I still enjoy doing those. But I quickly, after I started doing stuff at the hangar, I quickly realized that how much these aircraft meant to the maintainers, the flight crews, anybody that ever had the opportunity to work on these aircraft. And it is so awesome to see that connection that you guys have to these aircraft, especially down in the comments. I love reading the comments, even the criticism. And I know you guys want the best for this aircraft, and it is really cool to see that. And I deeply appreciate that, guys. So thank you again. And without further ado, let's get over to the hangar. Enjoy, guys. All right, everybody, welcome to the hangar tour portion of this. And I am joined by a very familiar face. We got Crew Chief Al. So we're going to start in the hangar next door to the Phantom hangar, which is what we keep back here, which is a T-33, correct? Correct. So do you know much about this particular bird? It looks like the speed brakes down there at the bottom, right?
That sure is. Those are the speed brakes up there. You'll notice this is the T-33, but this has a P-80 nose because it has the gun ports for the bit calibers.
How many did they carry? 4. Just 2?
There was 2 here and 2 in there.
Oh, okay, so this is the port for one. This one's just getting over.
Your gun bay, but now it's just a big, like a truck.
Luggage compartment.
Luggage compartment. Yeah.
So this does fly, but not currently, because.
As you can look over there, the engine's under overhaul, but as with a lot of things in life, a few things got in the way and slowed us down, but everything's starting to come back around a little bit.
Yeah, not sure what. So, in order for this to fly again, that needs a complete overhaul, and that's its current state.
Of disassembly.
Right. That's a J-33?
Right. That's and this Lockheed T-33.
Right.
And it had I guess that's a GE. If it's a J-33.
I think so. It's a GE.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's this is a very interesting design because it's not an axial compressor. It's a centrifugal.
Centrifugal, which basically has got one great big disc that's got the blades on it that are curled a certain way, you know, shaped a certain way, and as it spins up, what an axial flow does is it's a high pressure spike real quick.
Right.
But it's not necessarily a whole lot of flow.
Right. And the air pretty much goes straight through it versus this, where it does change directions at least once,
well,
right?
The axial flow, right, is the one with all the blades, and this one just has one great big
compressor.
turbine, and this is your the burners are here. This sucks in all the air through here.
So that's your compressor section.
Compressor section, which is just one great big disc under here.
Yep, and then some sort of manifold.
This manifold goes into the burner cans. The burner cans go over the turbine wheel, and off we go.
Yep, and which that's also missing, I believe, because they would attach back here, right behind the stator, right?
Right. Well, there's another row or section, but yeah, as you can see, it's in progress. But
yeah, geez.
You know,
something like that.
Something like that. But with, you know, let's see, COVID and things that have happened, and then the Collings Foundation had to deal with some very tough issues, and so, but now we're climbing back up, and we're going to get everything going. I'm sure if you looked at Diesel Thunder, you saw the F-100 flying.
Yep.
That's
yep.
okay.
We'll get over to that hangar before too long.
Yeah.
And just one thing in the back that's catching our attention is a spare engine, sort of.
Well, we got it for parts because it's too damaged to be flown again, but there's a lot of serviceable parts on there or repairable parts.
Right.
Okay. And I'm sure a lot of guys will remember the 3000 trailers. We got a set of the
pylons.
Yep, the inboard pylons. This is a J79. We got this. Rick Harris and I got this up in North Carolina. I'm trying to remember. But it was a flight school up there. They were teaching mechanics and the pilots. And somehow Rick was real good about it, but he finagled that, so we went and got it. So we went and got it.
Nice.
Brought it back.
It's just too far gone to...
Well, yeah, it's too far gone to... It wouldn't be worth it to try to put the whole thing back together. And some of the stuff is damaged from age
transport.
And transport.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, for example, we had to have that oil tank. We could use it. We'd go get it, you know, tested and cleaned and all that.
Yeah.
The big oil tank on top there,
yep.
yeah.
You can definitely see a lot of the business side of this.
And in the back you can see the 4-stage afterburner.
Yes, there's the afterburner ring like he was just mentioning. These vari vanes?
Variable vanes. Variable...
stator vanes?
Rotor vanes. Oh no, that was a stator. You're right. I'm sorry.
The VSV, right? Variable stator vanes?
And up here you got the IGV, which is your inlet guide vane.
Right, that's this first ring?
Right, the very first set of blades.
Yeah, and you guys can see that they actually pivot. And in our case, the generator is always on the nose of the engine, right?
Right. The Navy's had theirs done on a gearbox right under the front.
Yeah, I got lit up in the comments one day about that, and it's like, that's not where the generator goes.
It is on ours.
It is on an Air Force jet. Nice.
But, anyways, next.
Yep. And our collection of gas tanks.
Those are for the 100.
All of them?
Yeah. You nothing there for?
Oh, and speaking of the F-100, that's one of the tanks that came with her because she was originally in Thunderbird colors, right?
She was all polished and chromed up and just had, you know, the red, white, and blue Thunderbird colors up and down the aircraft. But when we got a hold of it, we painted it in the Vietnam colors because the 100 was instrumental in the early part of the Vietnam War and flew a lot of forward air control missions and air-to-ground missions.
She flew the most sorties of any airframe in that war.
Well, they had a lot of them by then, I guess.
Awesome. Oh, and this has been spotted before in one of the videos. That's a cowling of a...
A26.
A26. That's an Invader, right? A26 Invader? I think.
No, A26. I can't remember the top of my head. Anyways, yeah, that's off the original and vertical, part of the vertical, I believe. And we have some bits and pieces. That one met a unfortunate rearrangement of sheet metal.
It had a off-runway excursion, I think, right?
Right, and then so all the pieces are still around, but that would be a project that's probably way down on the list right now.
I don't even know where it's at. I've never seen it.
Well, part of it's right here. Now for the rest, I'm not sure.
I'm not either. All right. Shall we go over and see Our Lady?
Well, yeah, we might as well go.
All right, so here we are with the staple of all the videos that you guys have come to love, and that is the last flyable F4 Phantom in the US, this one being an F4D model.
Correct.
And interestingly enough, Crew Chief Al was part of the crew that went and got her from the desert. Do you want to...
Oh, well, back in 1998, I was working actually over at NASA Aircraft Ops, and one of the gentlemen there worked for the Collings Foundation and said, hey, I heard you know about F4s, and I said, yeah, so that's where I first got started. And then in 99, we went and rolled it out of the boneyard and turned it over to them with a contract and to the boneyard maintenance, that is. And they generated all the TCTOs and everything needed to be done. And we got it running, and then they went and got it painted. And this is actually in...
The second repaint, right?
Second repaint. This is in Colonel Robin Old's colors, tail letters, and tail number for Operation Bolo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the F4C that he flew, right?
Right.
Which that part of that is why this tail number of this is a little goofy, and I know a lot of you have asked about that, and that is actually one of the questions that we got about that is, can you explain the serial number? And let's see, the actual tail numbers of the Phantom and the Hun. Okay, we'll have to deal with the Hun later because that's at a different hangar, but in this one's case, the real tail number of this one is 6500749, and started life as a D model and is still a D model, right?
Right, and it I can't remember right off the top of my head everywhere it went. It didn't go to Vietnam, but
nope.
it did go to Spangdahlem, spent a tour there on nuclear alert. So I guess that nobody wanted to mess with that airplane. No
nope.
hang. But then I think it finished its career here in the Air National Guard. And then when they went to F-16s, all the F-4s went to the boneyard, and that was 89, I think it was, somewhere. I could be wrong, but it's
90
somewhere
or 91, I think.
Well, when they all went to the boneyard, and then, like I said, in 99, we went and got it out, and they got her all fixed, everything again. But we've tried to maintain it, and with not a whole lot to work with, but we get it done. We got a lot of good volunteers. But,
oh yeah.
Anyway, so it got all painted up and fixed, and we started flying it for a while, and then. As some of you may know, she's not cheap to fly.
No.
She's no cheap date, that's for sure.
No, definitely not. And you need a full crew to keep her up.
Oh yeah, and it's maintenance intensive, and we do appreciate every bit of help we can get.
Yes, and
anyways,
that was one of those questions too from, let's see, Phantom 24425. Phantom, I like the username there. Is, what do you find most difficult about managing this old bird? All the curveballs she throws us.
You want one thing? Oh, it's just
the electrical system's a nightmare sometimes.
Yeah, that's true too. I mean, it's just a lot of things. When they built the airplane, it was almost like the A-10. It's like they put parts up in the sky and built an airplane around it. And so some of the stuff just is not easy to get to or to work with. And if you worked F4s, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep. And then, what are the requirements for someone to join the team if they are interested?
Well, if you're interested in semi-able-bodied and at least can, follow simple directions.
And willing to learn.
And
like me.
Willing to learn, yeah. But yeah, I mean, people don't realize it. Like, the airplane's the big deal. She's the queen and everything. But you take a good look all around you. All this has to be involved too, because
so yeah, all the ground servicing equipment, and we got a lot of different pieces of that in various states and conditions, like our no-brake tug.
Right. So I mean, what I'm trying to say is, like, if we're maintaining these aircraft, more than one, we need a lot of ground support, a lot of ground equipment. And parts, they're out there, but it's not like, going over supply and say, get me this, not just stock number. So.
Yeah. And as far as the volunteers go, it's a bonus if, one, you've worked on these in the past in any capacity. Right. Like one of our crew was a weapons loader, and actually in this aircraft's last operational squadron, which was the Texas 147th.
Right, the Air National Guard,
yep.
Where I happened to have retired from.
Nice.
But they had 16s at that time.
Yes. And let's see here. Let's see. Oh, that's for the museum. Let's see. When do you think this one could fly? And this question comes from C.H. O'Kessler 850. Yeah, when do you think this one will be able to fly? Hopefully this year?
Oh, well, in a perfect world, my goal is to get her up by the air show. Now that time clock is clicking.
Yes. And then to go with that, we're not going to break safety for just to meet an artificial deadline just to get her in the air for the air show.
Oh, no.
If we make it, great. If not,
she's not going to fly until she's ready. I mean,
no.
I'm not cutting any corners. It's been a long time. I know she's been sitting a while, but we're going through it step by step. And like we just did an engine run, found out we got a leak on one. It's like stop and fix that, and then we'll just keep moving on.
And the hydraulic leak too that got us.
Hydraulic leak. Plus, I set up a set of forms that if you're in the Air Force, they're a whole lot like the 781s.
Yes.
So you'd be familiar with at least the basic setup.
Yeah. So it'd be awesome to fly. Now to go with the air show stuff too, a lot of that stuff is planned ahead of time. So if she got flying in October, that may be too late for her to be on the flyer schedule.
But I've been around long enough. If something like her just happens to show up and they're hurting for a little extra, she'll get snapped up. Now, as I imagine you can guess that she's not popular only because she's expensive. I mean, just putting gas in this thing is, it's a lot of gas.
It's just something shy of 2,000 gallons, I think, just with internal tanks. Yeah, just internal tanks, which I can't remember the math. It's somewhere around 12,500 pounds.
12,800.
Yep, that's on a D. I think it's slightly higher on an E because of the 7-cell in the back.
Could be.
Yeah. Nice. And then as far as Wings Over Houston, yes, we are usually participants in that in some capacity or not. The last 2 years, we've always had the 262, the ME 262 flying. I think we're planning on the F-100 this year. Again, to be determined per the final schedule from the air show folks. And
the A4. Almost
always we'll have a static display, and she has been out there, at least the last 2 years.
Oh yeah, she's out there almost every time, and but this time I'm not gonna rush. But if things fall into place, which is just a whole lot of, we're getting to the finish up, tighten up, fix up phase. We've still got a fuel leak on that left engine, which is just a change of seal, and run that left engine, run them both, get our final checks out of the way. It's not impossible, but we just kind of got to hope that everything falls into place.
And hopefully, I think we can take her out to the trim pad at some point too.
No, we'll make that or go up to the hammerhead and get one of the pilots to do it.
Yep, and give her the beans.
But this time put gas in it.
Well, last I saw is she has over 9,000 pounds on board.
Well, that should be enough. I had 2,000 pounds on board.
Yeah, that's below bingo.
Well, the reason I mention that is because I did an afterburner run up at the hammerhead of the runway once, and I only had about 2,000 pounds on board, and had a guy in the back stand on the brakes, and I stand on the brakes, and I popped that burner, and she chocks and decided to take off. Pull that throttle back.
Mm-hmm. Scary, but it kept your wits about you.
And once you kept going, it's like, no.
Nice. Let's see. Now, here's a good question. She is finished up. It's from the same user, CHO Kessler. Will you guys get and fix that other F4 for sale in California?
Well, I would say the odds are no. I mean, I won't say impossible, but it'd be no, because the main thing is it's the D model and that aircraft are so far apart in lineage. There's not a whole lot to swap with, or I mean, there wouldn't be a lot of commonality.
That was one of the early test aircraft. It wasn't a production model, right?
Right, it was a prototype.
Like on paper, it's an A model.
A model, yeah.
Right, but it's not quite. It was like the 11th or the 12th one ever made.
Right, but if you ever looked at the original prototypes, they look a lot different from what the Navy and Air Force got.
So not as much commonality of parts, I imagine, other than maybe it's just also happens to be shaped like an F4.
Sort of. It is. It has the wings and stuff. But
to top that off, I think if I read that for sale ad properly, both engines need a complete overhaul, which that is not cheap.
Right, TBO on a couple of J79s. No, thank you.
That's at least a couple $1 million or better.
Maybe. Yeah. Depending on what's wrong with them.
That's just the engines, and then a few other things got to go through. Yeah,
well, it's getting all the components tested.
Yeah, would be cool, but not likely because they're probably not going to share a lot of stuff. And plus, that one's a Navy bird, correct? Not an Air Force?
I'm not sure. I just remember it was white.
Yeah, it's painted white currently. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So hopefully that answers that question. And let's see what else we got. Oh, here's one. This is from JR815. Thanks for the opportunity. Can you show or talk a bit about the wing fold mechanisms? Is it just a switch in the cockpit? Are there some safety locked indicators in cockpit or on the wings itself for the ground crew? Well, that's already a distinct difference between Air Force and the Navy and Marines jets, because I think on their birds, the switch was in the cockpit, correct?
That's correct.
For doing carrier deck operations.
Right.
Air Force had the wing folds on the ones with the hydraulic rams,
right,
which is in the wing. Ours still has the rams. Starting with the E, the Air Force deleted that, and it was manual only, right?
Right. Well, they deleted the hydraulic portion of the wing fold, but you know, you can unlock it and push it up by hand.
Right. So we'll grab the camera and we'll walk back there and look at the wing fold. Alrighty.
Yeah.
So we got a few things going on right here.
Let's see if I can get the flashlight here.
All right. So this is the lock strut. This is what's actually holding it upright. So even if the hydraulic ram, which is tucked in behind there somewhere, it's hard to spot.
Yep.
Oh, here it is.
Oh, yeah, it's farther back.
So there's the hydraulic ram itself. So even if this leaks down and bleeds the pressure off, with that strut in place, she's not going to fall down on us.
No, but you got to be careful, because when you go to take it out, a lot of times you have to wiggle it because the weight of the wing is fell against it.
Yeah.
Just have somebody with you and be very careful. Also, when it falls to the ground, get your feet out of the way.
Yep. And then to go with a lot of this, so you guys can see the holes up on the outer wing surface, and then the corresponding holes that they would slot in here on the actual wing structure. And each one of these has a lock pin. Now, even though ours has the hydraulic fold, the lock was still mechanical, right? The locking mechanism?
Well, what happens is when this folds open, this actuator pulls all these pins out of, you'll see these lugs on either side, and all these lugs will go into the pin.
Okay, so
the pins will go into these holes, and that's what holds the wing fold down.
Okay, so this is what's pushing all the pins in.
Right, or out.
And is that hydraulic or pneumatic?
That's hydraulic.
Okay, and that's utility?
Right.
Okay, and then the ground crew has to mechanically lock that in place, right?
Well, we hit the switch with the hydraulics on it, and it'll go up, and as long as it's got pressure on it, it's not so difficult.
Right, and that's this.
Right. Oh, okay. Well, you have to unlock it first. Well, you'll see a red pin. If that red pin's sticking up, that means that the wing fold's not locked.
Right, and that's controlled by the ground crew, and that is right there, standing proud on the upper surface of the wing. That's visible from the flight, from the cockpits, right?
Right.
And then a distinctive feature on the D model. What are these tubes for, Al?
They're called BLC, or boundary layer control.
And this was a feature on all the hard wing phantoms.
The hard wing phantoms, right. It bled air off of the 17th stage, and it run them down these ducts when the flaps were down.
Right.
And these ducts created a swirling, and they were lined with itty bitty little slits that blew across the top of the wing. And when they blow across the top of the wing like that, it created a boundary layer of higher speed air and increased the lift. And whatever the percentage was.
Yeah. And that's only when these are down.
Right. It's supposed to be only when they're down.
Right. Because there is a light in the dash there that says BLC, right. And ideally that light is never on with the flaps up.
Right. And if it is, you better get them back down.
Yeah, because you need to ventilate all. Because
well, usually what's happened, there's a rod that controls the valve up there, and that rod end will break, and it'll stay open. And then you really can't do nothing until you take it apart and fix it.
Right, because they risk burning the wing if that's if that's blowing air when it's not supposed to.
Right, because this is aluminum and steel, but this is more of a titanium type metal.
Is J79? That's 17th stage. That's the final compressor stage. That's
right.
What, 700-800 degree worth of air?
I think it's somewhere around that 800 degrees.
Yeah, it's hot.
Now's when one of the engine shop guys needs to jump up there.
Yep.
So,
nice.
And we're starting to make preparations on a lot of the little things that we're going to need once we get it up and running, especially for a good launch.
Oh yeah.
Of course, with the high pack, we've got an air leak. I'm working on that. Everybody who's ever been around it knows what a high pack is.
Yep. Oh, that's high pressure air cart, which I have the battery charger on. There's always something with the battery charger.
Batteries around here are like the 10mm socket. They just, where'd they go?
Yeah. Somewhere in the tool drawer. Yeah. Ideally, and not up there.
Well, no, I mean the batteries though, they just tend to get moved around a lot.
Yes, especially the chargers, they tend to move around. Thankfully, the 12-volt ones are a lot easier to chase down because there's only like 3 things that have a 12-volt battery. Everything else here has a 24-volt battery, including the Phantom. All right, now another one of the questions we got is, what did they do to demilitarize the jet when the Foundation took possession?
Well, mostly they just cut a whole lot of wire bundles. They took a few of the boxes out, like under door 19. I think there's 2 missing, and in the cockpit there's a few, but most everything, anything related to a weapon system, they just cut the wires. And then that's the reason in the nose, if anybody's been around a D-model radar weapons control system, it's big, bulky, and heavy. So they found it easier just to cut that big trunk than try to put ballast back in it.
Yep.
So.
And it's one of the handful of manuals that we didn't get anything that was classified, right? We did not get that manual.
Right.
So, and I know that was a question I got the last time when we opened up the radome was, could we fix it?
Yes,
no.
but why?
Yeah, well, not really, because it's just too much broken with it because of what the Air Force did to demilitarize it.
Right.
That, and can't get parts for it, and really wouldn't do much use for us other than a very high-powered and glorified weather radar, right?
That's about all we could do with it if it did that. But if anybody that knows the radar knows it don't last very long before it breaks.
Yes. So that was one of the things with her being not a frontline air combat fighter back in her day. She did the nuclear mission.
This one?
Yeah. So she never really got the radar upgrades like her contemporaries got.
In Vietnam, yeah, she probably didn't get those upgrades because they weren't doing the same mission.
Yeah. So like some of you guys may have seen the radar scope in previous videos. That is her original scope. That's the DVST radar. That's the direct video storage tube, they called it. Now, for those that enjoyed the DCS F4E, that was an upgraded radar. That was the DSCG, Digital Scan Converter Group, which not only did they get a better display, but there's some other stuff under the hood in the radar that improved that, even though it was still a pulse-only radar. Right. Now, with the demil stuff, so none of the arming circuits are like, you can't hit the trigger and release anything.
Well, actually, I think we have VHF radio on the gun trigger. It's like when you want to talk, you pull the trigger.
Just like a helicopter.
Yeah, just because, I mean,
yeah, it's just
can't shoot
convenient.
anything, might as well use it for something good, because we had to put a VHF system in the aircraft since we are civilian.
Yep.
We don't use UHF.
No. And then to go with that, anything that we hang on the aircraft, because they did not break the fuel systems, correct?
Right.
So we can hang drop tanks.
Right. I mean, you can hang the drop tanks, but you can't blow them off. You can unlock them and drop them, but
On the ground.
Right. They demilled the cartridge, the ejector system.
Yep. Which would go in one of these. I don't remember what this is called.
That's a breech.
And, yeah. And a cartridge would get seated inside here and then screwed into something.
Either the launcher or the tanks or whatever you can use it on, and they send a voltage to here because it of course grounds to the case, but the voltage goes to the center of the cartridge, and you can see it blows the gas out. It's not a bang so much as just another real fast burn.
It's a gas generator thing, right?
Gas generator, but it's really hard
quick.
to tell the difference. But
right.
like on our missile launchers, the gas goes to the 2 tubes that are set on the missiles are set up into these Ys, and when the gas goes to those tubes, it shoves it down all the way.
Kicks the missile off, and then
there's a lanyard that goes to that length, and when it gets to that length, it sends the voltage to the motor, and poof, off it goes.
The rocket fires, yeah. Nice. And then in our case, all the Sparrow launchers, and I think even the not the Sidewinder rail so much, but the Sparrow launchers, the breeches where these would go are completely welded over, right? Right. So, one, we can't get breech charges, and even if we could, we couldn't screw them in because they're welded over.
So, if we ever had need to blow a tank off, tough.
Yeah, the FAA does not like things falling off of aircraft, and military kind of gets an exception to that rule, but this isn't military anymore, so nothing is allowed to fall off the aircraft, even if we wanted it gone, like a fuel tank.
Right. Well, you really don't want any airplane throwing parts around.
No. They had an incident over, I think, in Europe recently with a tank falling off a jet. Yeah, I think it landed on somebody's house. I'm foggy on the details on that, but yeah, they had a recent incident with a fuel tank coming off a jet and landing somewhere that shouldn't have.
But anyways.
But awesome. I think next up we got is this burner can, and then we can move on to the other hangers?
Sure.
Awesome. Now, some of you guys may have seen this in the background. That is the burner section of the J79. The actual burner, the flame holder itself is on the engine, but that bolts to the back of the engine, correct?
Right, it's that part you see sticking out the back.
Yeah, so the nozzles on the back, that's the nozzles that you see externally. That's only one set of them, correct?
Right, there's 2 engines.
2 engines and 2 sets of nozzles.
Right, each one has a primary and secondary nozzle. The primary being on the inside, and the secondary being, and they're connected to each other through linkages, and they close down to create the Venturi effect to increase velocity. But they also have bypass air between them, and on the J79-15, it would make that howling noise that she's famous for.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and now these are oil pressure operated, correct?
Right.
Using engine oil pressure?
Correct.
Now the oil doesn't go all the way back. It goes to those little motors right there, drives that shaft, and there's four on the engine?
4 actuators.
Yeah, so every 90 degrees on this, you got the actuator rods that actually make this open and close. And then what was that rod called?
That's called the nozzle feedback indicator cable.
And that's what drives the instrument in the cockpit, right?
Lets it know if you're, what position the nozzle's in.
Nice. Because at idle, mostly it's wide open, and then it bottlenecks down closer to mill power.
Well, at quarter nozzle, I think it is, and then it'll go all the way back to full when you go into burner.
Mm-hmm. Because at that point, you just want all that raw thrust and horsepower.
Somebody back there throw a lot of gas in that thing.
Yes. All right, here we are in another one of our hangars, and with not one of our aircraft. This is a MiG-17, and I believe this is one of our partner organizations here locally that we partner with. There's 4 organizations here on this airfield. That's us, Collings Foundation. We got Vietnam War Flight Museum.
Right.
Yep. And I think that's where she belongs to. And then you got the other organization that my son volunteers with. That's the National Armed Forces Museum. And then you got Lone Star Flight Museum. So we do work closely with the other organizations down here. Well,
basically it's called the Warbird community for a reason, because like every now and then somebody's scrounging something.
Yep.
And then we are too sometimes.
So you guys probably know this particular hangar is the F-100's hangar, and you guys can see some of the, well, actually, yeah, there it is, right by the MiG tires there. The F-100 is probably the hardest one for us to park, only because how long she is, can't fold the wings, and we got maybe 8 inches either way for the tires, or she's not getting in here.
The wings have a real high sweep, but they're very long, and so the only way we can get it in is at an angle, and even then it's like very little space.
Yeah, and I think we got from that forward pitot probe, it's only it's less than a foot to the door at that point.
That's where it folded.
Yes.
Yeah.
If that didn't fold, it ain't going in here.
Right.
Yeah. But other stuff we got in here, we got that wood shop in the back too.
But we, trying to get it cleaned up.
Yep. Yeah, this was the hangar that. So this was the hangar that we were cleaning up this past weekend, and I had set up some time lapses for, and I don't know what happened with the camera. None of them are there, so that's why the video was so short on this last weekend. Gesundheit. So that's why the video was so short on the last ones, because the time lapses got hosed up somehow, and these GoPros are great, but sometimes they are a little bit fussy. And then got some more shop stuff behind us, and you can see that's awfully clean. And hopefully we have this running in time for the air show. And like I mentioned, I don't know much about this. Do you know much about this MiG, other than it's a 17?
It's a 17. It belongs to the Vietnam War
Flight
Museum. Right. Because they're all similar. But anyways, and he's like one of the pilots that flies in our aircraft too. It's kind of like I said, it's community, and
yes. And
of course, this being the enemy, we got to get the F4 out against it every now and then.
Yes. She did fly against these in Vietnam.
Oh yeah.
And 21s. I think this is going to fly in the air show, maybe.
More than likely, because this one's not. It's in good shape.
She's a flyer.
Right, and then Rick also has a MiG-21, but I don't know what kind of shape it's in right now.
Flyable?
They're trying to concentrate on the F-100 and the A4.
Yep.
And then while we're trying to, wrap up the F4.
Yep.
And then like I said, if things go the way I would like, which doesn't mean much, is the F4 and all of them will be flying in the air show.
Yes. But not
some noise.
Not gonna shortcut anything to get her there though.
Nope.
And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, this one may be a combat vet herself.
That I don't know.
Okay.
I do know about the Huey, but not this.
Yeah, yeah. We'll stop there next, because that's an interesting piece in the collection, is the Huey, which I think we can move over to there now, because there's not as much over in this one. Yeah, it's a warm one today. All right, guys. So here's another one of the hangars that we keep here, and we have the iconic helicopter from the Vietnam War. That is the UH-1E model, in our case Echo. It's a Huey, and of the 6 aircraft that we keep down here, she is our only combat veteran, correct?
Right, stationed in Da Nang.
Yeah, at least Marine Observation Squadron 6, I remember, and there's one other squadron she served with there. I just don't remember off the top of my head. And so, yes, this is one of our combat vets, actually our only combat vet that we keep down here in Houston. Right. And unfortunately, being that she is an older Huey that was shorter.
Short rotors.
Short rotors, it's the 540 rotor system, I think.
I don't remember the number.
Yeah. So that had a different blade setup compared to the H model, and later that had the stretch fuselage and the bigger engine and transmission setup. So there's still manufacturers that make blades for the stretched Hueys, the H model and newer, but nobody makes blades for the short Hueys. And I can kind of see the logic there. H and later had far more production numbers from Bell Helicopter than the E and earlier models. So there's not as many of these to go around. But yes, this is one of our combat vets.
Right.
Yep.
Got a few patches in it.
Yes, and you've gotten a few rides in it too, right?
Oh yeah. So, you know, for a jet guy, it could be a lot of fun to play around in. Especially when you know a pilot knows what he's doing with it.
That was a Vietnam flyer?
Right. Oh, well, this was a gunship there in Da Nang, but I've had a couple of the guys that are Huey drivers. You know, I'd take us up for a ride, and one time we were filming the F4 doing a thing, and he did the full pitch forward, and it's kind of fun. But then I went up with this guy named Mike Wilson or Williamson, I don't remember for sure, but he was a Vietnam gunship pilot, and he scared me, and I'm fearless.
I can only imagine what that ride was like.
Well, I'm glad he knew what he was doing.
Yeah. Now you know where some of the patches are, so let's look at this. So this Huey does have some patches that repaired damage that from holes put there from the North Vietnamese Army, and I think this is one of them right here on the nose.
There's one right there, and there's one right here by the pilot.
Oh wow, that one, and I know for
no, that's not a patch.
Nope. I know there's one towards the back on this side. Mostly, she's dormant right now because of the rotor situation. And until we can get blades for her, she's just kind of laid up in preservation. Oh, right here. So right here on the engine bay door, this, let's see if I can. You guys can see that's that was not put there from the factory. That was that's definitely a patch from a hole. And the crew that day got incredibly lucky that it didn't hit something vital.
Yeah, it must have gone right through there.
It must have passed underneath the engine, because if that was at a different angle, it probably would be a different story, and this would not be here in this hangar right now, huh?
Well, that's the way the world works. So I was like, looks like another one there.
Those are hinge plates, I think, because this is the door latches.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So, yes.
The infamous Dash 60.
Oh yes.
A lot of guys spend a lot of time around that.
Yes. And so yeah, that's some of the ground equipment that we got. We got the Dash 60. We do have an MA-1A, which was the predecessor to the Dash 60, correct?
Right. It's just a gas generator with the hose.
Yeah, it's basically just a huffer. Right. No electrical power. Dash 60 did both electrical and
air power.
Yes. Now, so for you DCS guys, if this Dash 60 looks familiar, it's because it is. Heatblur got some of the. I did a lot of still shots and photos, and set up a recording session so we could capture the audio of the Dash 60, and that's what made it into DCS. So if you guys see the green carts, the art and the paint scheme for it, That's our Dash 60, and I'll throw a little segment in right there so you guys can see that. It's really cool. Our tug fleet, that's gas operated, that's an old baggage tug, and that's our aircraft tug back there.
This one has a flathead 4 in it.
6-cylinder, I think.
4.
Oh.
Maybe I'm thinking it.
So, yep, 6. Yep, there's a flathead.
If you've never seen a flathead before.
No, and some of you if you guys are into classic cars, you guys may recognize it. That's an old Continental 6-cylinder with an oil bath air cleaner.
Oil bath air cleaner.
And yeah, that is extremely messy to handle if when you take it off and you tilt it, it spills.
One barrel carburetor.
Yep. Which this needs some work to go through. That it's a Zenith Stromberg carb on this thing, something I looked into to try to fix, and those things are very, very particular about being sealed up right. But this can pull aircraft, and this I think was a late 50s, early 60s model, maybe.
I think. I know it's at least no more than late or early 60s because flatheads started phasing out.
And then there's our other 2 tugs. We got each one of them has a nickname. So we got Old Timer, Sparky, because this one needed a lot of electrical work once upon a time. And this was an old bag tug, actually for United Airlines. United Airlines was the original customer. Yep, there you go. I don't know how well that'll come across. And then there's our aircraft tug, and that is a much more robust drivetrain for pulling aircraft, except for the brake situation that I've covered in a previous video. Our TO library and our refrigerator, which does come in handy for these hot days, because I'm about to grab me a Gatorade.
I'm about to grab me a door.
Awesome. Well, that's this section. We got more to go see because a couple of our aircraft are at a different hangar. So let's go check that out. Thanks, Al.
Later.
Alrighty, our next stop here on the tour, Vietnam War Flight Museum. Let's go check it out inside. Alright, so here I am in the hangar, and this is not so much a museum as it is a working hangar. And behind me you can see the F-100. And first supersonic fighter ever in level flight for the US military. It's really cool. And as you guys saw recently, this is a flyer. And that was really cool to see. I really wish we could have gotten out to the out on the runway there so we could get that boom of the burner taking off. And oh, hey, hey.
What are you doing in here, man?
What are you doing here?
Hey, are we filming the same thing?
I guess we are.
All right, well, as y'all know, this is Jamie.
That's Jared.
Hi. Well, this is funny. All right. Well, let's go ahead and continue this tour. What were you talking about?
This lovely F-100 here that we have.
I was doing. I was over there, though.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
what a coincidence.
So cool. All right. Well, let's continue giving them a tour then.
Yeah. So, I know this is planning on flying more often.
Yeah, we're actually planning on flying it at Wings over Houston, but hopefully we'll fly it at least 1 or 2 more times before that.
Definitely. And definitely we'll have some better footage for you guys. I know that was a common complaint on the channel here is
Same.
We got most of his leg off my camera.
Yeah, for y'all watching his awesome video, that was my fat leg that was in your way, so sorry about that. But we both came together talking about it after that, and we decided we invested in some new cameras. We're not going to let that happen again.
Yeah, so. And if you guys haven't seen already, he's got a couple on his channel with the 360-degree camera, and that was really cool.
Yeah, it worked out pretty great, and I also captured the audio in one of the GoPros that didn't actually work.
Oh, with the comms?
Yeah, we did. We had a comms going right into the side of the GoPro that didn't work. So we're going to fix that next time.
So we're both learning at this. We're kind of new to doing the YouTube and stuff. Like, I only started doing this, what, 2.5 years ago?
Yeah, when I just started, it seemed like, what, last week? A few months back.
We'll get there. And one of the cool things we can do is coordinate ahead of time with airport ops and somebody out there near the runway for the takeoff to catch that burner ignition, especially for this thing, is that has a distinct...
Yeah, it's 6,000 pounds of thrust additional all at once. So I think we talked about it on your channel on one of your, but this thing's 10,200 pounds of thrust.
Right.
And as soon as you light the burner, it's all at once 6,000 pounds more thrust. Which a cool comparison, which I should make, is that's the same amount of thrust, actually a little bit more, I think, than a T-38 in full afterburner.
Wow.
So basically, as soon as you light the burner in the F-100, you're getting a full T-38 and full afterburner extra amount of thrust all at once.
So you feel that.
Oh, you definitely feel it, and you hear it. It's amazing. So cool.
That's awesome. And yes, so that's the F-100. So if we pivot around,
yeah,
here's another one of our aircraft. It's the A4, which he also gets to fly on another one.
Yeah, so I mainly fly Skyhawk 518. Maybe a lot of you know that, but this is basically the same thing. It's a TA4. They were both TA4Fs. Now they're Js. Really, there's not much of a difference in civilian life.
Nope.
This one has the, they both had the two 20mm cannons on it.
Yep.
Ours has been restored, whereas this one's stock, which I think is cool for on both fronts. It's cool to have a stock one. It's cool to have a restored one. The only difference is ours has modern wiring. It has modern oxygen in it. It has modern, avionics. Basically, it's 2,000 pounds lighter.
Yep. And yours has the bent fuel probe instead of our straight one.
It does. It has the bent. Now, it came with the straight fuel probe, and the only reason they changed it out to the bent one is because it wouldn't fit in the hangar. With the bent one, it would. It takes 3 feet off of it by changing it.
That's another thing with the F-100 here. It's pivot up. You guys see the pitot probe there. If that wasn't able to fold, we couldn't put it in our normal hangar. Yeah, and it would be really crazy. It's actually like the gnat. We'll get over and show you the gnat. I don't know if you can see it from here, but we really wish that pitot tube on the gnat would fold up too, because it adds another 5 feet to that aircraft. It's a small aircraft, but an extra 5 feet, it's quite a bit. Yeah, it is.
So, but yeah.
That's yours too, right?
I do, I own that one, yeah. I'm lucky enough to take care of it.
Well, let's learn about this real fast.
Let's talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
So, this is a 1965 Fallen Gnat, and this one's got some really cool history. So, the Gnats were on the Yellow Jacks.
Okay.
All right, a lot of people say Yellow Jackets, but it was the Yellow Jacks. And that was the British, one of the British aerial flight teams. In 1965, they went to the Red Arrows. They consolidated a lot of the flying demonstration teams into the Red Arrows.
Right.
This was on that team from 1965 all the way to 1979. So basically, the entire time that the Red Arrows had Gnats, this one was on the team. All right. So after that, it was kind of cool. For a little while, it went to a little maintenance school where they learned how to work on them. Then it came to the United States, it got restored, and it was actually in Hot Shots, the movie.
Yes, I remember that.
So it was one of the cameras. Yeah, let me show you up here. Let's walk up here to the front and I'll show you something cool. As you can see, it's got the little slipper tanks on here.
Yep.
Those are extra fuel tanks. So the Gnat's famous for having this giant single landing light right here up on the front.
Okay.
This aircraft, if you watch the movie Hot Shots, you'll actually see a view from out of that lens looking forward over the pitot tube.
Oh, they stuck a camera in there?
That's right. They took that landing light out, and it was this aircraft that was the camera ship.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's really cool. This is a fun way to do. I hope you guys are enjoying this, because I think this is a fun way to do this video.
I do too, and I'm trying to keep my mic pointed the right way to catch all the voice.
Yeah, same. You know, the difference is you look nice, and I've been here moving airplanes around, and I'm all sweaty. So sorry about that. So
it happens.
But yeah. So this thing's got 4,520 pounds of thrust.
Okay.
And it weighs 5,500 pounds. So it's a real hot rod. It's a real hot rod.
Can't wait to see that go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe
we might even run it later today.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm around for that.
Yeah.
So we got a couple other stops too.
Yeah. And we got the MiG-21 in here, of course, which is by far the fastest airplane in this hangar. Ultimately, it's capable of Mach 2.05.
Wow.
And the issue with that is you have to be about 48,000 feet in order to go that fast.
Yep.
And the lower you get, the slower you have to go. Yep. So one of the things I want to talk about is these airplanes aren't top speed capable all the time.
No.
And it's one of the things we're going to cover.
Yeah, and we try to keep. We don't max perform the airplanes. We try to keep them. We don't want to overdo it, overstress them.
Well, and another thing too that you got to think about is, okay, that one's got a centerline tank on it. So that tank itself has a top speed of 1.5 Mach.
Right.
So even though the aircraft's capable of over 2,
store limitations.
Exactly. So that happens a lot with these aircraft.
Yep. Yeah, the on paper top speed doesn't quite match with the combat load.
Right, exactly, exactly. So, and we have a bigger 800-liter center line as well that's not even supersonic.
Yeah. Now that one, you can only stay in burner if I think the limitation is usually 1 minute, unless it's wartime, then it's 3.
I think it's something like that. I'll have to look in the book. I think this might be one of the later versions that there's actually no limit on this one. But I think some of the 21s did have that.
Yeah, because just something with the pressure limitations in the engine or something.
Right, and not to mention you'll run out of gas.
That that's really hard on the compressors too.
It really
is. It starts getting a lot of heat.
It really is, yeah. And most of those engines are only 300-hour TBOs.
That's low.
So you want to, yeah. I mean, if you're looking at something like an A4 that can go like 3,500 hours, usually, you know, you do hot sections in between.
Yeah.
But it's pretty impressive.
Oh yeah.
And these Rolls-Royce engines, the engine that's in this, the 101 Orpheus in the Nat, is actually the precursor to the Pegasus that's in the Harrier.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, really cool pedigree.
That's a noisy one.
Very noisy for as little as it is.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool stuff, man. It's fancy meeting you here. We're running into each other. We might do more of these collabs. Let us know if you like this.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, we have more to talk about too. So I know you're going to head over to Lone Star.
Yep. Yeah, that's the next stop.
All right.
And, hopefully, if I'm still around, I'll come over and get the net firing up.
Yeah. And if not, if we do end up running it, I will get some footage of that and also probably share it with Jamie.
And I'll leave a link to his channel down below.
Oh, thanks.
So
yeah, I'll
be sure and check that out.
I'll do the same, but I think most of your fan base is excited to see me because they've never heard of me before.
No.
Mine, they probably already know you.
That they like your right leg.
That's right. They love my big old right leg. So, well, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. And thanks again, Jamie.
Thanks, Jared.
For coming over here and filming with me.
Yeah, man.
All right. See y'all.
See ya. All right, everybody, our last stop on the tour is right here at Lone Star Flight Museum. Now, for me personally, the very first time I ever saw our F4 was actually when she was the aircraft of the month here some years ago, and that was really cool. My son was like, "Hey, that's an F4." And yes, that was our aircraft. So this is another one of the organizations that we partner with, as we mentioned. And one of our last aircraft that we keep down here in Houston is actually inside here. So let's go check that out. All right, so last on our stop here is our ME-262. Now, this is not a 1940s original. This is a 2002 reproduction aircraft done by the ME-262 project. Now, sometime last year, there was a couple of news articles that went out about the Collings Foundation parking their Wings of Freedom Tour aircraft, and that was predominantly the World War II warbirds. She does not fall within that category, being that she is one of the newest in the collection, and this one will keep flying for as long as she can anyway. But yeah, this is a reproduction of a B model, the 2-seat aircraft, and has GE CG 610s in the pods and not UMO 004s like she originally would have had. So she is currently the aircraft of the month here at Lone Star Flight Museum. It's one of the partner organizations that we work with, and this museum is so worth a visit if you guys are ever in Houston. So definitely a facility worth checking out, because they got 2 hangars full of stuff. They do vintage aircraft rides, which includes their B-25, and some of our aircraft end up over here as aircraft of the month, just like our ME-262. Now, there's 2 other aircraft that are over here, just like Jared mentioned, his TA-4 and the A-1 Skyraider that belongs to the Vietnam War Flight Museum, which is right behind that Dauntless over there. Let's go check this out. Now, a lot of the aircraft in here are flyable aircraft. Not all of them are currently airworthy, but most of them are. So this is the A-1D Skyraider that belongs to the Vietnam War Flight Museum. And as you can see, that is a huge aircraft, all the way down to that right 3350 massive 18-cylinder engine. And if you look at it side by side with an old torpedo bomber, the SBD Dauntless there, they're almost equal in size. Massive airplane. This is big, and that is awesome to see flying during the air show. Another one of the cool things they got here that I thought was worth highlighting is the Corsair, the F4U Corsair. This is a -5 post-war variant with a much more upsized or uprated R2800 And this one replaced all the 50 calibers with 20mm cannons. So there's 4 20mm cannons on this version. And they keep a DC-3 in here. And again, I always lament why DCS does not have a C-47 that is player flyable yet. Beautiful aircraft. That one's fun to watch. I do have a video of a cockpit flight that I'll link below too for this one, as well as I'll leave a little card up here in the corner of the screen to click on too. There's another beautiful aircraft. This is a flyer. This is frequently seen in the videos flying on the weekends, and to my knowledge and talking with the museum staff here, this is the only one allowed to be painted this way from the Doolittle Association and with the Doolittle Raiders logo. Alrighty, and kind of hard to see, but there it is. So that is the TA-4 that Jared gets to fly too, and that is 518 that he mentioned earlier. And that, I don't know if I can get back there to see the fuel probe, but that one's got the bent fuel probe, complete with the GTC 85 hover cart. Alrighty, big thank you to not only Lone Star Flight Museum, but also the Vietnam War Flight Museum for helping with the production of this video. And a big thank you to all of you guys as well for your interest in the channel. It certainly means a lot that you guys are interested in not only what I do with the DCS stuff, but as well as with the real aircraft here. And it is awesome to see that. So big thank you to all of you again. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.